Hi. You know, everyone likes wearing fringes, except for people that don't like fringes. And so what I wanted to talk about today, I just got done doing a class for a great salon up in Alaska. And I just am always reminded about how important this little area of our haircut is. And so I just wanted to share my 3 steps for creating a fringe and also just kind of deciding what I actually want to do with that area. So the fringe area to me is the most important thing that we do as hairstylists because it's the thing that the client sees the first and the most. And so I like to take a look at it almost as its own separate little haircut. It's a little slice of heaven right here. So what we want to do is we want to decide, number 1 is it going to connect to the rest of the haircut or will it be a standalone haircut? You know what I mean. So if you have someone who has a fringe area and they have long hair and you want to do like a blunt line, that obviously does not connect to the rest of the shape. But if you have someone who has layered hair and maybe it's a shorter cut, it's going to connect. So that's number 1, is decide if the shape is going to connect to the rest of the hair or if it's going to be a standalone cut. Number 2 is what form of cutting is it going to be? Okay, so will it be one length, layering, or graduation? Because as we know, those are our 3 ways to cut hair. Everything else is a combination of, or it is, one of those 3 forms. So as I'm working with the fringe, I'm like, okay, do I want to remove weight, which would be one length, or layering? Do I want to create a blunt line, which is one length, or do I want to create fullness, which is graduation? So those are the 2 first things. And then I'm also considering face shape. So face shape is really important because we want to create something that's flattering. So do I want to create width or do I want to create length? So if I'm looking at someone and my eye goes back and forth when I look at their facial structure, typically they're a little bit wider and I would want to create length. If they have really long, lean lines, then I'm going to want something that creates a little bit more width. So, somebody just said I'm helping them feel more comfortable cutting short hair. Thank you. I'm glad. That's always my goal, is that you would feel confident with knowledge, and that's always so much better to stand behind the chair when you feel confident. So what I want to do with this particular shape is I want to create a fringe that doesn't quite connect. I want it to be a little bit separate. I'm going to use graduation, so a lower elevation, and I'm also going to create width. I want to create some width. Let's pretend she's got a narrow face. So I've isolated the fringe area, and the fringe area typically will be a specific spot. So you can find the area by finding the high point of the head, which is to lay the comb horizontally on the head. And then you work out to the corner of the eyebrows, and that gives you kind of the maximum amount of hair that you can use. So I'll just clip the rest of the hair out of the way because I'm not going to connect to it. I'm going to create a little bit of a visual connection because I'll be using graduation. The difference between graduation and layering. Layering is always going to be shorter in the interior, longer at the hairline. So if I were to cut this, let's say to an increase in length like that, when it falls down, you would have a diffusion of weight. So it'd get thinner at the bottom. What I want to do is I want to create more fullness on the top, so I'm going to lower my elevation. So coming in here, and I promise this won't be too long, we'll just make it a quick one. And I'm going to take the hair and work straight off of the front of the head. So what this is going to do is it's going to give me longer hair on top, shorter hair underneath, which is what graduation is. It builds up weight and length. And then I'm going to over direct everything to the center. So it's going to give this nice fanned out effect. I'm thinking, actually I'm going to over direct just to my previous section so it gets a little bit longer, but it isn't like a curtain fringe. I'm kind of done with curtain fringe, if you can believe it. I know I still post it, but you know, you have to. So I'm going to go right in the center, and I'll show you that guide first. And then what I'll do is I'll take and I'll over direct just to my previous section. So I'm only going to over direct a little bit, which will give me a little more length and width as the hair travels outward. So here we go. We'll take a central vertical section, about a, I don't know, ½ inch section, I would say. And I want this to be nice and long. I want it to be kind of be like a really soft, sexy type of fringe. We have some people just joining us. I just graduated ladies bangs today, and I thought it was, oh, well, there you go. Well, many times with, somebody said they just graduated somebody's bangs, but they thought they were layering them. There's a fine line sometimes between layering and graduation. Anything below 90 degrees, so the moment I drop this down, it's going to become heavier and, you know, more in graduation. The moment I lift it up and higher, we're going to get a narrower, more layered shape. So for the fullness I want, we're going to come off the front of the head. You can see that, and if you were kind of judging it, you would want to be able to serve tea right on top here. So you would want like a teacup to be able to sit on top. That would give you that graduation. I've got a low elevation, shorter underneath, longer on top. So the first thing that I decided was that it was not going to connect exactly. Let's see what this does. Let's just point cut this and take a look. Okay, so I'm cutting my line square off of the front of the head. Okay, that's way too long, so let's bring it up a little bit. Someone just asked where I'm from. I'm from Spokane, Washington, so I'm a Northwest girl, Pacific Northwest in the United States. I know I've got a lot of people from around the world on here right now. Thank you for joining. Okay, I want this to be kind of a shaggy, soft feel. It still is too long, okay? But you can see what I'm starting to get here, right there. Now, graduation is wonderful to use when you're not necessarily connecting to the rest of the cut. What we have on this cut is we've got some long layers, so it's, you know, it's kind of got a little bit of activation, but the length on top gives a visual blend out. Whereas if we were to layer it, then those pieces would sit on top of this and it doesn't blend at all. So I'm really wanting just like a heavy, kind of in your eyes, sexy fringe, but she does need to be able to see. So going at it one more time. I mean, I've always heard, you know, measure twice, cut once. I measured 3 times and cut 20 times. So, okay, there we go. And I'm really liking that as my beginning. Okay, so somebody says they're a cosmetology major at SEC and loved my work. How do you overcome the nervousness of cutting hair? Practice. For me, it's all about knowledge. And when you have knowledge, it creates confidence. The only way you get knowledge is education. So, I mean, like I have my Sharp Scissor Society, which is a membership program. It's $9.99 a month. You can go on my website, seriousbeauty.com, and, you know, read about it. I got a little video there. Thank you, Tess, for joining. I see you. And my whole goal is to give you confidence inside of the techniques you're using. I don't currently right now teach full haircuts, although I definitely can. But I love teaching an application of a technique that will increase your knowledge and allow you to create something that you're wanting to create. So in this instance, just the fringe. I keep disappearing. There we go. Okay, so now I've taken my first section directly out from the head. And when you're over directing to the previous section, you get a little buildup of length, not too much. If you think about it like this, if I'm moving across, I'm just going to be taking my first section, my second section comes to my first, then my third section comes to my second, and my fourth section comes to my third. So I start getting just progressively a little bit longer. Versus what I was thinking about at the beginning was to go here and over direct everything to that point. And you can see how it would get a lot longer as it travels down. So we're just going to go to our previous, all of that to say that. So just taking vertical sections, I'm going to over direct to my previous section, so coming in just a little bit, and point cutting. Now, how many of you are going to the ISSE show in Long Beach in January, the end of January? Please tell me some of you guys are, because I have some exciting news. I get to actually do the teach-in for hair braid. They asked me to do it. I'm so excited. So that's going to be a Saturday night event at the show. I'll be on stage doing a model with some incredible, incredible artists. Okay, so over directing into my previous section. One of my friends, Jacob Kahn, will be there, Philip Wilson, Sonia Dove, Robert Cromines. So I'm going to have a lot of good company. Okay, see how that just creates that really beautiful increase in length out to the sides. And when you look at it, and we'll look at it after I dry it, you'll be able to see this rounded edge to the front that you only get by using graduation. You don't get it by doing layering, because layering removes that weight. And sometimes you want that, but right now I don't want that. Okay, now the trick is going to be over directing to the same, well, to my previous, in the same manner that I did it the first time. So your sections need to be consistent, your over direction needs to be consistent, elevation, and then also the line that we're cutting. So my second section comes to my first. And if you have a mirror, it's a lot easier to gauge where you're actually at. Now, when we started, I said there were 3 things that you need to really consider when you're creating a fringe. The first thing to me is it going to be its own little haircut, or is it going to blend into the rest of the shape? This one is going to be slightly disconnected. There'll be a visual blend because of the activation and the smoothness in the top of the hair. The second thing is, do I want to create layering, graduation, or one length? Because those are the 3 things we can do. How much weight do I want? How much of a line do I want? How much softness do I want? I chose graduation on this because we have a lot of activation, a heavy shape. I wanted a really sexy, heavy fringe. So I chose graduation. Okay, over directing to my previous section. Then the third thing was that I definitely want to consider face shape. Facial structure is so important when you're working with the fringe area because it changes. I mean, you can literally make somebody look different with how you're cutting and the shape that you're putting on them. Now, somebody just asked, when do you know if you're supposed to use point cutting? It's a great question. I always use it when I know that I want to have a diffused line. I don't really want to have a crisp line. I could create this without point cutting, cut a blunt line, but it will give me a stronger shape. It'll give me a stronger structure. And I want this to be a little bit less structured. So that's when I use point cutting. Okay. You're distracting me. So I'm going to make sure I'm cutting it the same. Okay. Now, do you cut fringe wet or dry? You cut fringe however you really think you should, but if I'm changing the structure dramatically, I will usually cut wet and leave it slightly longer than I think I want it, because that's always, just safer. And then I will go in and dry it. Okay, so I feel like I might have just a touch more length on this side, which if I'm doing this in the salon, I would switch sides. So you always want to over direct to yourself. I call it you over direct to the girls. So we would always over direct towards us. So on this side, on the left-hand side, I would come over here and pull this way. You tend to over direct more when you're doing that versus when you push away from yourself. So I just like to keep it consistent. You could do either way. Okay, so I just need to bring this one and not over direct quite as far. So I'll just remove just a touch more. You'll notice that one thing that is consistent, though, is that my elevation is consistent. I'm still able to serve tea on all of this hair. And when I say by that, I mean, in case some of you just joined me, this is being pulled straight out from the head. So this is a flat surface that I could serve tea on if I really wanted to. Okay, so we have a long fringe. Yeah, that looks pretty darn close. And because of the smoothness of the line, even though it's disconnected, there still is a visual blend because of the surface of the hair. I just heard somebody ask me about my scissors. These are Angel Blades. My 6-inch are out of stock, but we expect more, and we've got some updates on them that I'm really excited about. But yeah, you can find them on my website, which is seriousbeauty.com, and I'll throw the link in the comments after I'm done with the video. And it's also, the link is in my bio. So, okay, I'm digging that. I don't really want it to be too smooth because there's a lot of texture in her hair already, but I do want to break it up a bit. So when I'm thinking about texturizing and breaking something up, I'm going to decide, do I want to change the shape or keep the shape? And I definitely want to keep the shape. So everything will be done exactly at the same elevation and distribution that I originally cut it at. So I'm just going to dry this off really loosely. And I don't necessarily want to, I want it to look very lived in, almost as if it air dried. So maybe just like setting my hand right on here. Okay, what else? Digging the bangs. What else? I love my shears. Thank you. I'm so glad. Maybe not quite that messy. Alrighty. Okay. Now, on this particular fringe, I cut, I'm going to show you, this is one from my class. I know she's bald. I do all these different fringe techniques, but I shave the head so you can just see the fringe on its own. But I'm going to show you on this particular fringe, which was cut the same way, I think, or I used a traveling guide, but I can show you the rounded feeling that the graduation gives you. So when you look at this, and you look at how that edge rounds right here, it's really hard to create that any other way other than using that square. Someone's asking what the name of the dryer is. I actually got to help design this dryer. It's a Veris dryer, and I'm a national or international artist, global artist for KMS, and Veris is a sister company to them. It has a 14-foot cord on it, so it's just incredible. I love it. And quiet, and you know, it's a good dryer. Okay, so do I ever travel to teach? Yes, I do. I'll be doing more of that in the new year. But look at that fullness and this smooth surface to the top. That's what really is the beauty of this particular technique. Okay, now let's grab our girl again. And I'm going to go in and change just the texture of this. I don't really want to change the structure. So I'm going to do what I call a texture sandwich. And if I'm doing a horizontal line, my texture sandwich would be with horizontal sections. But because I did a rounded line, it's going to be with vertical sections. And I just got to ask if I'm going to be in the UK. I probably will be at some point in time. I'm not sure when, you know, with everything the way it is. Okay, so I'm going in and just creating some big chunks inside of this one section. Then I'll leave a section out without any texture. Okay, so I'm creating a texture sandwich. Textured, none. Texture, none. And would I do this on fine hair? Absolutely. This is beautiful on fine hair. You would just take smaller sections and, of course, play to the density of the hair. I call it reading the hair. So this is just a couple of sections here. One more little texture. And when I'm doing this, I never break through this top surface because the top surface is what's giving us that visual blend with the rest. But even with that, you can see how it just kind of makes it a little choppier, but it still has that fullness to it. It's so hard sometimes to get that really pretty heavy fringe. Okay, I don't want to connect. I just want to give a little bit of texture blend there. Okay, so just to re-establish, what we have is we have some graduation in this shape. There we go. And look at that rounding that we have on the front. I dig that. I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot more heavy fringes coming back. Just because we've had a lot of curtain fringe where everything is moving back away from the face, very layered. It'll be fun to see maybe some bowl cuts return. This would be pretty all the way around. Oh good, you want bangs now. Yay! Okay, so just to revisit the three things. So first I'm deciding, is it going to connect or not connect? Okay, is it going to be part of the rest of the cut or a standalone cut? This one is standalone, a visual blend rather than a technical blend. So just so you can see that, I'll just pull this up. You can see that we don't blend, but it isn't a big deal because of the surface of the hair. Okay, so number one is connect or disconnect. Number two is what form of cutting am I going to actually use? Is it going to be one length, layering, or graduation? One length will give you a blunt line. Graduation gives you a full line and a buildup of weight and like that movement. And layering gives you narrow shapes, which curtain fringe, a lot of them are layered because you're like working back away and you want to have shorter pieces. So that's a little bit more of a layered type of feeling. And then the third thing, I always look at the facial structure. Does my eye go vertically or does my eye go horizontally? So do I like, when I look at someone, does my eye do this or does my eye do this? I always feel like I'm blessing them when I'm trying to figure it out. And on this particular lady, my eye went vertically, and so we wanted to open this up and create that width. So, okay, let's see. If I did connect it to the rest of my cut, how would I do it? I would probably pull everything up to that last point. You know, probably out to that last point to connect. So I would probably just keep going and over direct everything to one spot. Or I might choose to bring it all together instead of using that traveling fringe, because then it would blend into the back a little bit easier. So it all depends. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll be posting this to my videos so you can reference it later. So you guys have a wonderful evening. If I don't see you before, happy holidays. Bye. If I can get out of here, I know I can do it.